When Alex Murdaugh was arrested in 2023, a life built on wealth, power, and privilege began to unravel. As a representative of one of South Carolina's most influential families, Murdaugh's seemingly perfect life hid dark secrets beneath the surface. This case tells the tragic downfall of a man who had it all but lost his family and legacy while desperately trying to evade justice. Have you heard of the Alex Murdaugh case? This is the question that echoes through one of the most shocking legal dramas in recent American history. Set against the backdrop of the Deep South, in South Carolina, the Murdaugh family name was synonymous with power and influence. For nearly a century, the family dominated the local legal scene, with generations serving as solicitors in the Low Country. But the tragic events of June 2021 would change everything, unraveling a web of secrets, corruption, and ultimately murder. It all began on the evening of June 7, 2021, when Alex Murdaugh, a prominent attorney, made a frantic 911 call. He reported finding the bodies of his wife, Maggie, and their youngest son, Paul, at the family's expansive hunting lodge, known as Murdaugh. Both had been shot multiple times, and the gruesome discovery would soon ignite a whirlwind of speculation and intrigue. Paul Murdaugh, who was just 22 at the time of his death, was embroiled in his own legal troubles. In 2019, Paul had been involved in a tragic boating accident that led to the death of 19-year-old Mallory Beach. Paul had been drinking heavily the night of the crash and was facing charges of boating under the influence. Many speculated whether this tragedy had somehow set the stage for his and Maggie's violent deaths. As the investigation into the double murders unfolded, the public became captivated by the Murdaugh family's complex history. The family, once regarded as the pillars of justice in the region, was now the center of a growing scandal. Rumors began to swirl about the family's deep-rooted connections, their influence over the local legal system, and the secrets they may have been hiding. Yet the most shocking revelations were still to come: the discovery of dark secrets. In the months following the murders, investigators began to dig deeper into Alex Murdaugh's life, and what they found was beyond anyone's imagination. While the investigation into Maggie and Paul's deaths continued, another scandal came to light, one that would expose Alex Murdaugh in a completely different way. In September 2021, Alex himself became the target of a criminal investigation when it was revealed that he had been embezzling millions of dollars from his own law firm, PMPED. The discovery shook the very foundations of the legal firm, and Alex's colleagues quickly turned against him. But the twists didn't stop there. On September 4, 2021, just months after the murder of his wife and son, Alex Murdaugh was involved in what appeared to be a bizarre roadside shooting. He was found on a rural road with a gunshot wound to the head. Initially, it was reported that Murdaugh had been shot in a drive-by attack, but soon the truth emerged. Alex had orchestrated his own shooting, hiring Curtis Eddie Smith, a distant acquaintance, to kill him so that his surviving son, Buster Murdaugh, could collect a $10 million life insurance payout. This shocking revelation painted a picture of a man who was cornered by the weight of his lies, fraud, and deceit. Facing mounting legal troubles, financial ruin, and the possibility of being exposed for his crimes, Alex tried to escape through a desperate and poorly executed plot. The shooting was yet another piece in the twisted puzzle of Murdaugh's unraveling life: the financial crimes. As authorities began to connect the dots, they uncovered the extent of Alex Murdaugh's financial crimes. He had been stealing millions of dollars from his clients, many of whom were vulnerable individuals who trusted him with wrongful death settlements and other legal claims. Over a span of years, Murdaugh had funneled money into his personal accounts, leaving many families devastated and without the compensation they were owed. These financial misdeeds only deepened the mystery surrounding Maggie and Paul's deaths. Was their murder a calculated act by someone who had been wronged by Alex? Or was it tied to the growing tensions within the Murdaugh family itself, as Alex's fraudulent empire began to crumble? As the investigations into Alex's financial crimes intensified, the layers of deception and betrayal became even more complex. The Murdaugh family, once the untouchable legal dynasty of South Carolina, was now a name synonymous with scandal and tragedy: the courtroom drama. In July 2022, Alex Murdaugh was finally indicted for the murders of his wife and son. Prosecutors alleged that Alex had killed them to cover up his financial crimes, believing that their deaths would buy him time and sympathy as his life spiraled out of control. It was an unprecedented twist, turning the grieving father and husband into the prime suspect in a murder case that had captivated the nation. The trial was set to be one of the most high-profile cases in recent memory, with media outlets covering every detail. In the courtroom, the prosecution painted Alex as a man driven by greed and desperation, willing to go to any lengths to protect his crumbling empire. They pointed to the mounting evidence against him, including forensic data, witness testimony, and Alex's erratic behavior in the weeks leading up to the murders. Alex's defense team, however, maintained his innocence, arguing that he was a grieving father and husband who had been wrongly accused. They pointed to the possibility of other suspects, including those involved in Paul's boating accident case, suggesting that the Murdaugh family had been targeted in retaliation. As the trial progressed, shocking details continued to emerge. Witnesses described Alex's emotional instability, his addiction to painkillers, and the depth of his financial crimes. But the question that lingered over the courtroom was whether Alex had truly been capable of killing his own family to cover up his misdeeds. The verdict and aftermath. In the end, after weeks of testimony and evidence, the jury reached a verdict that would forever alter the course of Alex Murdaugh's life. He was found guilty of the murders of Maggie and Paul, as well as multiple counts of financial fraud. The once respected attorney was now a convicted murderer, facing life in prison without the possibility of parole. The trial may have ended, but the story of Alex Murdaugh is far from over. His actions have left an indelible mark on his family, his community, and the legal system that once upheld him as a pillar of justice. The fall of the Murdaugh dynasty serves as a chilling reminder of how power, greed, and corruption can intertwine, leading to tragic consequences. The aftermath and legacy. As Alex Murdaugh began his life behind bars, the ripples of his actions continued to spread far beyond the walls of the prison. The once powerful Murdaugh family was left in ruins, its legacy shattered by greed, betrayal, and violence. For the people of South Carolina, particularly in the Low Country, the case had forever altered their perception of justice and privilege. No longer would the Murdaugh name be spoken of with reverence instead. It would be remembered as a symbol of the corrupting power of unchecked authority. The trial had exposed a multitude of failures, from the legal system that had allowed the Murdaugh family to wield its influence unchecked for so long, to the culture of silence that had protected Alex's misdeeds for years. The exposure of these cracks in the foundation of South Carolina's judicial system led to calls for reform. Many believed that the Murdaugh case was just the tip of the iceberg, and that other powerful families might be hiding their own dark secrets behind closed doors. The impact on the survivors. While the public's focus was largely on Alex Murdaugh and his trial, the survivors of his actions continued to live with the aftermath. Buster Murdaugh, Alex and Maggie's surviving son, found himself in an impossible position. The death of his mother and brother, compounded by his father's conviction, had left him devastated and isolated. Buster had initially stood by his father's side, supporting him throughout the trial, but as the verdict was read, he faced the crushing realization that his father had been capable of such horrific acts. Buster became the subject of public fascination, with many wondering how he would cope with the loss of his family and the tarnishing of the Murdaugh name. Would he continue the family's legacy in law, or would he distance himself entirely from the shadow of his father's crimes? Only time would tell, but one thing was clear: Buster's life would never be the same. Meanwhile, the family members of Paul's boating accident victim, Mallory Beach, continued to seek justice. The wrongful death lawsuit brought by Mallory's family against the Murdaughs was still pending, and the revelations about Alex's financial fraud added a new dimension to the case. Mallory's family, along with other victims of Alex's financial schemes, hoped to recover some of the money that Alex had stolen, but the path to restitution was fraught with legal challenges. For these families, the end of the murder trial was only the beginning of their fight for justice. Questions left unanswered. Despite Alex Murdaugh's conviction, many questions remained unanswered. Chief among them was the true motive behind the murders. While prosecutors had argued that Alex killed his wife and son to cover up his financial crimes, there were still doubts about whether that alone could drive someone to commit such an atrocity. Some speculated that Alex's years of addiction to opioids had clouded his judgment, leading him to make irrational and desperate decisions. Others believed that there were deeper, darker secrets within the Murdaugh family that had yet to be uncovered. The investigation into Alex's financial dealings also raised questions about how such massive fraud had gone unnoticed for so long. His law firm, PMPED, had prided itself on its reputation for integrity, yet Alex had been siphoning millions of dollars from client settlements without detection. The firm itself came under scrutiny, with some questioning whether others within the firm had known about Alex's actions or had turned a blind eye. The road to healing for the community of Hampton County, where the Murdaugh family had long held sway, the road to healing would be long and difficult. The Murdaughs had been deeply intertwined with the fabric of the region for generations, and their fall from grace left a void that many struggled to reconcile. As the dust settled from the trial, there were those who felt a sense of relief that justice had been served, while others mourned the loss of a family that had once represented strength and stability. For the victims of Alex's financial fraud, the end of the trial marked a new chapter in their fight for justice. Many of these individuals, some of whom were the survivors of wrongful death claims, had been counting on the settlements that Alex had stolen. The question of whether they would ever be made whole remained unresolved, but the legal battles over Alex's assets were far from over. The final chapter as the years passed, the Murdaugh case remained a topic of conversation, a story that would be retold in countless articles, documentaries, and true crime podcasts. The case had all the elements of a classic Southern Gothic tragedy, a powerful family brought low by greed and corruption, a small-town community shaken by betrayal, and the devastating consequences of unchecked privilege. For Alex Murdaugh, life in prison would be his final chapter. The man who once wielded so much influence over the law had now become a prisoner of it. As he sat in his cell, he had time to reflect on the choices he had made, the lives he had destroyed, and the family he had torn apart. Whether he felt any remorse for his actions remained a mystery, as Alex had maintained his innocence in the murders throughout the trial. But for the victims of Alex Murdaugh's greed and violence, the story would never truly end. The pain and loss they had experienced could never be undone, and the scars of the Murdaugh case would linger long after the headlines had faded. The legal fallout. In the aftermath of Alex Murdaugh's conviction, the legal proceedings surrounding his financial crimes intensified. His involvement in the embezzlement of millions of dollars from clients not only exposed deep corruption, but also revealed the extent of his manipulation. Investigators discovered that Alex had used his position at PMPED, his law firm, to siphon off funds from settlement cases involving vulnerable clients, many of whom had suffered severe injuries or lost loved ones. These were clients who trusted him, believing he was working in their best interest, only to find that the man they relied on had betrayed them for his own gain. The collapse of Murdaugh's financial schemes left countless victims in financial ruin. Elderly clients, widows, and accident victims were left without the settlements they had been promised, and their hopes for financial stability shattered. The legal system, which Alex had manipulated for so long, was now being used against him. Civil lawsuits mounted as the victims sought restitution, while Alex's assets were seized and sold off to pay back a fraction of what was stolen. Yet, despite the civil victories, the financial devastation he left in his wake would be felt for years to come. PMPED under scrutiny. Alex Murdaugh's former law firm, PMPED, found itself embroiled in scandal. Once a prestigious firm in South Carolina's Low Country, PMPED had been regarded as a cornerstone of the community, a beacon of legal prowess and integrity. But now, its very foundation had been shaken. The firm's partners, many of whom had worked alongside Alex for decades, faced uncomfortable questions about how they could have missed the massive fraud happening under their noses. Internal investigations began immediately, with PMPED vowing to root out any corruption that might still remain. Yet the trust the firm had once built with the community was irreparably damaged. People questioned whether others within the firm had turned a blind eye to Alex's activities, or worse, if they had benefited from his schemes. The once proud name of PMPED now carried the stain of Alex Murdaugh's actions, and its future was uncertain. Several lawyers at the firm issued public statements expressing their shock and betrayal at Murdaugh's actions. For some, this was not just about salvaging their careers, but about maintaining their own reputations within the community. The legal fallout from the firm's involvement in Alex's crimes was far-reaching, as clients sued PMPED for negligence, accusing them of failing to protect their settlements. The financial and legal ramifications were enormous, leaving many to wonder whether the firm could ever fully recover. Revelations about the Murdaugh dynasty. As more details of Alex Murdaugh's life came to light, it became clear that his fall from grace was not just an isolated incident, but part of a long-standing pattern within the Murdaugh family. The Murdaughs had held power in the Low Country for over a century, dominating both the legal and political spheres. 3 generations of Murdaughs had served as solicitors, prosecutors, wielding tremendous influence over the criminal justice system in the region. Their name had become synonymous with wealth, privilege, and legal authority. But beneath the surface, the Murdaugh dynasty harbored secrets that had remained hidden for decades. Rumors of cover-ups, backroom deals, and questionable legal practices swirled around the family, and Alex's downfall only fueled the speculation. Many wondered how far back the corruption went, and whether other members of the family had engaged in similar activities. There were whispers of other potential crimes and misconduct, with some questioning whether Paul Murdaugh's fatal boating accident, which had claimed the life of 19-year-old Mallory Beach, was part of a larger pattern of the Murdaughs using their influence to evade justice. The public began to view the Murdaughs not just as a family that had fallen from grace, but as a symbol of the dangers of unchecked power and privilege. The emotional toll on the families. The emotional toll on the surviving members of the Murdaugh family was immeasurable. Buster Murdaugh, now the sole surviving heir to the family name, was left to grapple with the aftermath of his father's actions. Buster had lost his mother and brother in a horrific crime, and now his father was behind bars, convicted of their murders. The weight of carrying the Murdaugh name, once a source of pride, had become a burden too heavy to bear. Buster struggled with conflicting emotions: love for his father, whom he had once admired, and anger at the man who had destroyed their family. The media's relentless focus on the case meant that Buster could never escape the shadow of his father's crimes. He became a reluctant public figure, constantly followed by reporters and scrutinized by the public. Every move he made, every word he spoke, was dissected and analyzed. Some wondered whether Buster would follow in his father's footsteps and pursue a legal career, while others speculated that he would distance himself entirely from the Murdaugh legacy. On the other side, the families of Alex Murdaugh's financial victims faced their own struggles. Many had trusted him with their futures, believing that he would fight for them in the courtroom. Instead, they had been left with nothing. The emotional betrayal they felt was compounded by the financial ruin that Alex had inflicted upon them. Some lost their homes, their savings, and their livelihoods as a result of Murdaugh's greed. For these families, the legal victories felt hollow. No amount of money could erase the pain of being deceived by someone they had trusted. The public's fascination with the case. The Alex Murdaugh case captivated the nation. True crime enthusiasts, legal analysts, and casual observers alike were drawn to the story of a powerful family brought down by scandal and murder. The case had all the elements of a gripping drama: money, power, betrayal, and death, and the public could not get enough. Documentaries, podcasts, and news specials dedicated to the Murdaugh case proliferated, with many delving into the intricate details of Alex's financial schemes, the mysterious deaths surrounding the family, and the ultimate downfall of the once untouchable patriarch. The case became a cultural phenomenon, with people across the country speculating on what had driven Alex to commit such heinous acts and what other secrets the Murdaugh family might be hiding. True crime forums lit up with theories about the case, with some suggesting that there were other players involved in the murders, while others focused on the broader implications of Alex's financial crimes. The sheer complexity of the case, spanning multiple deaths, millions of dollars in fraud, and decades of family history, kept the public's attention for years. Conclusion: the Murdaugh saga unfolds. As the final chapters of Alex Murdaugh's life played out, the case became more than just a story of personal tragedy. It was a cautionary tale of unchecked power, privilege, and the dangerous intersections between wealth and the justice system. Murdaugh's conviction for the brutal murders of his wife and son, combined with the revelations of his financial crimes, exposed the fragility of the facade the Murdaugh family had built over decades. In the aftermath, the town of Hampton, South Carolina, and the entire Low Country were left grappling with the legacy of the Murdaugh dynasty. Generations of influence had been stripped away in a matter of months, and the justice system, once controlled by the very family at the heart of this tragedy, was forced to reckon with its own complicity in allowing such a reign of power to persist for so long. The final court hearings left no room for doubt. Alex Murdaugh, once a revered figure in his community, had fallen from grace in the most public and tragic way possible. His desperate attempts to cover up his financial misdeeds led to an unthinkable decision to murder his family. The motive, while still debated, seemed clear: a man trapped in a web of lies and financial ruin, seeking to escape his fate by any means necessary. Buster Murdaugh, the last remaining member of the once powerful family, faced the future alone. As he sought to rebuild his life, the question remained: could he ever escape the shadow of his father's crimes, or would the Murdaugh name forever be associated with scandal and death? The media frenzy slowly began to die down, but the impact of the case on those directly involved, Alex's financial victims, the families of Paul and Maggie, and the local community, would never truly fade. For many, the case was a reminder of how quickly a life of privilege can unravel, and how the pursuit of power and wealth, when unchecked, can lead to devastating consequences. As Alex Murdaugh sits behind bars, his story remains a testament to the dark side of human nature, a man whose ambition and greed led to the ultimate betrayal, the destruction of his own family. For those who followed the case, the Murdaugh saga will remain one of the most shocking true crime stories of the decade, a story of a dynasty brought to its knees by its own hubris. The curtain finally closed on a tragedy that had captivated the nation, but the echoes of the Murdaugh family's downfall will continue to reverberate in the halls of justice and in the hearts of those who lived through it. Final reflection. The Murdaugh case is a stark reminder that beneath the surface of wealth and influence, there can lie deep corruption and hidden secrets. While justice was ultimately served, the scars left behind by this case will linger for years to come. This is the story of Alex Murdaugh, a man who had it all, and in his quest to maintain power, lost everything.